Thank you so much for staying with Good Morning Kenya and for choosing KBC Channel 1 to help you kickstart your day this morning. And already in the studio, the conversation began a long time ago. Actually, we were just already having the show literally off air with my guests this morning. I told you when we were starting the show in the morning, we today on Family Check are going to be focusing on something that is very sensitive in the society, especially at such a time when we have crazy hashtags like Ifikie Wazazi, hashtag Ifikie Wazazi. I'm sure you've interacted with that hashtag on Twitter and you've seen some of those photos that have been trending and why this conversation has become so important, especially in the weekend that was. It speaks volumes to the kind of mindset our young people have, the kind of information they have, what they consider normal and okay, what they consider part of life and what is not part of life. You need to look deeper into this other than just looking at the photos and making your own comments. So today we want to talk about something that is very sensitive and may touch on what is going on currently. I'm talking about sex education and the young people. That is our topic of discussion this morning. Is it time that we take this a notch higher? Is it time that some things just needs to be discussed openly, some options needs to be given at such a time? These are questions that we'll be exploring in this conversation, as we also will be looking at the issue of contraceptives and all the options that are there. If in case it's even okay for you as a parent to start talking to your child about safe sex and trying to, make it something that is safer for them, is it even okay for you to go that direction? That is something that I will be asking my guests this morning. A tricky one, I tell you, but we'll try as much as possible to make it easy for you as a parent out there. And as a young person who is watching this show is for you, just to be able to make informed decisions when it comes to that particular moment that you do not know what to do. My name is Serfin Achieng. Welcome to the program, and I'll introduce my guests for the show. I'm hosting a panel of two gentlemen. Sitting from my far left is Fred Abok, our family counselor and a life coach that we always have on the show, the resident family coach. Thank you so much for creating time once again to be with us. Then we are having Mr. Colin Dick. He is the managing director of DKT International. It's a social marketing company. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And something interesting you're doing in terms of advertising that touches on our conversation today and the issue of contraceptives. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us this morning. Probably we all know Fred. He has always been with us every Monday, but then we'd like a chance to get to know you a little better. So for my viewer, you can probably tell us a bit about yourself before we begin the conversation, Colin.
Sure. So we've been operating in Kenya and Uganda for the last 2 years. So DKT is a large global social marketing organization that focuses on contraception generally, but obviously HIV prevention, unsafe abortion, those types of things. And the reason why we entered the market in Kenya and Uganda is that we felt that there was not enough choice for young people. There was not an aggressive enough activity and action to try to give not only young people but married couples choices for how to plan their families and how to make smart, informed decisions.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Sure. And thank you for creating time as well to come to the show this morning. First of all, I'll take you back on that, but then before we get to that point, first of all, I'd like your quick reactions on what was happening this weekend. I'll bring you up to speed with it about the hashtag that has been trending about Ifikie Wazazi, like let it get to our parents. Sure. It's very pictures that back in the day you'd not be very comfortable seeing your child taking, or even if you're a young person back in the day, these are pictures you'd not be comfortable posting online or any person to see. But right now it's like it's okay. It's like you go to the social media and you beat photos like this each and every day, and it's okay, it's normal, let it get to our parents. What is your quick reaction when you see something like that happening in our society, happening to our young people? What is going on through your mind? Let me start with you, Fred. What is happening? How would you interpret what is happening currently?
Thank you, Serfin. This morning is pretty sad that we are actually discussing moral disconnect between the young people and their parents. And is actually just a proof that there has been a moral degradation to an extent that what we can actually term as a moral decay is being justified. And, you know, our parents are being brought into the understanding and in the limelight that, hey, see, we are in Sodom and Gomorrah, and, you know, things are haywire. You need to come to the realization that we are indeed out of touch. And I've actually always spoke on this show that what you fail to share with your children, the media, the society, the crooks out there will be able to share them to your children. And what we're actually saying is, for lack of a better word, that the demon has actually entered our homes, and we are no longer on control of some of those things. And the demon of Western culture and social degradation has actually entered on, and we can actually not be able to be in control. And that's what the young people are portraying onto us today, that our Africa moral descent is no longer at hand. And we are out of touch with culture. We are out of touch with our spirituality. We are out of touch with our systems, and we've left it on haywire.
All right, Fred has decided to demonize it and to paint a picture of Sodom and Gomorrah at such a time, just to give us a scope of how bad things are from where he sits. I don't know, Colin, from where you sit, what do you think is happening exactly when you see such photos, or when you see young people doing things related to what we saw in those photos?
I think the reality is that the world is a lot smaller than it used to be. Much smaller than it used to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's not 2 weeks until you get a letter, or 2 months until you get a letter from somebody overseas. You know, there's an email, it's constant, it's instant. The world is very,
it's a
very
small
small.
Village.
Social media, exactly. That's a perfect characterization of it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think we're forgetting is that people, you cannot have control over your kids at all times. You can't. I don't have control over all of my staff that works at DKT. I can't control what they do. I hope that they do the right things. I hope I train them, that they have the right skills and they have the right knowledge ahead of time. And it's the same thing as a parent. Young people are very empowered today. We've got so many smartphones out there. Over 40% of the population in Kenya has a smartphone. So you can Google it, you can Facebook it, you can tweet it, you can do whatever you want with social media. So it's there, and hey, you know, better to get out in front of it, and knowledge is power.
Yeah, okay.
So better to educate your children and talk about the options that they have, so that they can make a smart, informed decision, than wondering and then ending up, whoa, we got a problem here.
Okay. I like what both of you have said, and you're right. It's what is happening is unfortunate, Fred. And you're right also to say that there is need for information. There is need to wake up and face the reality, and to inform our young people of what is happening. And that is what informs the conversation this morning. The how to empower young people, that is what we will discuss. And how bad the situation is, and what aspects of the situation are actually bad, and what aspects of it are good. That is what we will be talking about this morning. But let's begin by looking at the numbers and the scope of the problem, so that the reality, you know, comes to us this morning. For them who are still burying their heads in the sand and feeling like, you know, our young people are still innocent, they will wait until marriage, they will abstain until they meet the right person. That is good, but is that what is happening today if you look at our society?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Is that where we are as a society?
As I was preparing for this show, it is a bit staggering, the numbers that we see of unintended pregnancies, unsafe abortions, the age of sexual debut. But again, those people, as young as they are, whether they're adults, whether they should make that decision or not, as us as parents, or us as society making a judgment of somebody else's decision, they're doing it anyways. They are, well over 33% of the Kenyan population under the age of 18, probably between 10 and 18, has engaged in sex.
Okay.
And how you say, are they abstaining until marriage? Well, maybe now they're 15 and they think they're in love, and they want to express that love.
Yeah.
Or they're with a 20-year-old person who this is what we do when we love each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't take marriage anymore. You know, there's a lot of people cohabiting.
It doesn't matter anymore.
It's the society is different today.
Fred, I'll borrow from your religious inclination about this. We come from a society that has very strong religious inclinations. It doesn't matter which religion you come from, but I'm sure no matter which religion you belong to, there are those guidelines, strict guidelines for abstinence, for chastity, and all those issues. If you look at what is happening in our society today and what is supposed to happen, religiously speaking, and even morally speaking, what could have been the major cause of this gap?
Great. Serfin, it's important to understand that they say that Kenya is 80% Christians, maybe 20% other religion. But the basic underline is that all the religions, not only Christians, are there on into the aspect of abstinence. And of course, there is need to, you know, be morally right and upright. But we could be very deep in the we could be very wide in the percentage, but very shallow in the understanding of the principles that are there on into what ought to be done. And of course, it just shows on an inclination of what you believe in, but lack of understanding on what you believe in. All right, because if you believe in what is right, then you need to actually also get to understand how can I be able to make things right. And you know, we need to be coherent and in understanding that the young people are developing and the technology is dynamically coming on board. And when the technology comes on, it comes also with all manner of negative things and also the things that are basically for discovery. And you know, these are all inscribed into our mindset. And you know, so it is very important to get to understand how then do we disseminate the right thing. For example, if you go to the bank manager and the society does not teach the bank staff on how to identify fake notes, but rather they expose the bank staff onto the real note. Until when they see a fake one, they know that this one is not real. Now, the best thing that ought to be done is that we need to expose our young people to the right thing. That when they get to expose themselves into the internet and the social media and all this manner of things, they will definitely know that this one is not part of our culture. This is not the right thing.
Before we solve a problem, we must know where it's coming from.
Sure.
And I'll take you back. I'll share just some of the figures that I also have. This was done by the National AIDS Control Council. They gave a report in 2016 on so many issues, including HIV and AIDS and the level of STDs. But then one that strikes me now was the issue of teenage pregnancy. As at the time when the world was marking Contraception Day in September of that year, that's 2016, they say that 1 in 4 Kenyan women aged 25 to 49 gave birth by 18 years. And out of these, 2 women out of 4 gave birth before the ages of 20 years. We are talking about between, you know, below age 25. Yes. They went further to give us more data, and I would want to borrow from the Demographic of Health survey that gave a figure in 2014 that showed that 50% of women in Kenya aged between 20 and 49 had their first sexual experience by 18 years. And 1 to 10 of that population had their first sexual experience before they got to 15 years. I don't know if you get the breakdown. That's even higher than the conservative estimate I gave. That in 2014, women, 50% actually, of women who are aged between 20 to 49 admitted to the fact that they had their first sexual experience below the ages of 18. But 1 to 10 of this population was way below 15 years. So it even gets worse. And these are just women. We've not talked about, you know, the men. So I don't know if, you know, we wake up today and ask ourselves this question: where did the rain start beating us? Because these numbers were not as high as they are right now. We come from a culture where you needed to safeguard your morals and your dignity, and you needed to wait until marriage for you to even start thinking of sex or even getting this information. But then we got to a level where numbers of people who were engaging in sex below the ages of 15 started rising. And then now we are in an era where it's okay, you know. It's one thing for them to engage in sex and society to have issues with it, but it's another thing for it to be okay, for us to start having conversations about giving teenagers options of contraceptives. Where did the rain start beating us? That is the question
Before
I
Dick
want
comes
us to
in,
answer.
and I know he's going to come up with facts, allow me to break one of these moral standards of an African society. That I believe that the rain started beating us when the parents began to assume that parenting is by osmosis.
Okay.
Where we lack time to sit down on a dinner table with our children and begin to explain to them what is sex based on their level. Or fear to talk about sex because indeed, consciously, we also understand how immoral we are as parents. But as we are doing that, we don't understand that every home has a TV that is actually exposing our children to what we cannot be able to talk to them.
Okay.
So we slowly drifted on into leaving the parenting aspect to the TV rather than leaving it, giving on the right direction. But also, when we accept the norm that independence can as an individual get to expose themselves to the society, there are guidelines that defines on how we grow up. And these guidelines, the basic and the most fundamental areas that we can be able to receive them is home. They say that what you cannot learn at home, you can never learn it anyway. And of course, then if you can't learn it at home, then you will get an alternative from somewhere else. And that's why Dick and the team will come and solve out the crisis based on what we did not learn at home.
Okay.
So I believe that it is important to get back to the basic of getting back on the dinner table and understanding things on the level. That sex is inevitable. It's no longer a taboo. And it's something that got to be discussed and be understood. Because we are suffering as a result of ignorance. And ignorance has pushed us into the level of accepting and lazing ourselves into things that are not really beneficial to our society, though they are acceptable in the society.
Okay. You're right here, Colin. You've heard what he has shared. Is it true that, at such a time it's important for alternatives to be there for young people, like what your organization is doing? For campaigns like that, for contraceptives to be offered to our young people, is it like the best option we have at such a time?
I'm not sure if we're going to be able to claw back the 1950s. I don't think most people are interested in that world anymore.
Okay.
Particularly young people who've been exposed to the. I don't know. I think the demon of the West is probably a little bit extreme, but. But
true. The Western culture.
It's 2018.
Blamed on the Western culture.
It's 2018.
Yeah.
We are. It's Kenyan society is speeding up more and more and more. The economy is getting faster and faster and faster. And as you try to as a young person, as a parent, as a newly married couple, whatever it is, you're trying to build your family and your lifestyle, and everybody aspires. And maybe they're aspiring to what they're seeing on TV, and maybe that could be a car, that could be the newest cell phone, whatever that might be. But that requires work, and if you're working too much, then you're not going to have that time at the dinner table.
Yeah, to talk to your children.
And that's just the way it is. I mean, there's nothing. I can't change that.
Okay. So what do we do as a society?
I think we've got to get out in front of things as much as you can. As much as you can, you need to have that conversation with your children to say that these are the options. This is what I expect from you, and try to get. And hopefully you have the relationship with your children where they tell you the truth, and it's not this. I think fear mongering doesn't work.
Okay.
It's been pretty well debunked.
Yeah, true.
Saying I don't want you to do that. Hey,
and
man, that's like an invitation to just go and do it.
And try.
Whatever it is.
No wonder some people say they fear having such conversations with their kids because they feel like the moment you tell them about it, they get so curious and they say, why are you saying that I shouldn't do it? Actually, I should try to find out the why. And that is why most parents would fear even starting having such conversations.
But you can have a moral conversation with your children.
Yeah.
So the parents, I think we all, I don't know if you have children, but I'm sure Fred has children. I have 3 of my own. I aspire to be that the type of parent that can have an open and honest conversation with my kids as they grow. Obviously, they're very small now, so my 2-year-old doesn't understand this conversation. But once she gets to the age where, you know, she's 10, 12 years old, I'm going to have that conversation. My wife is definitely going to have that conversation because it's better safe than sorry.
True.
You know, is as uncomfortable as it is, that's the job of being a parent.
And we'll get
it's not an easy job. You know,
it's a full-time job.
You made a decision to have children. And that's a wonderful thing, and they are an absolute blessing. But you also have a responsibility to make sure that they are doing what's best for them, or at least making the most informed decision that they can to do what's best for them. And in reality, in society that we live in today, it's probably to arm them with the knowledge of their contraceptive options.
Wow, and that is where I was getting at. So how exactly would you as a parent talk to your child about contraceptives? Fred, is it even okay to go down that direction? Assuming you've had a very healthy relationship, assuming your child has already opened up and told you they're in a relationship, you know, they have a boyfriend, they have a girlfriend, assuming the conversation has gotten to a point where they've told you they're sexually active, would it even be right for you as a parent to encourage them to go that direction? How do you do it?
What is your reaction going to be?
Yeah,
if your son or daughter tells you that they're having sex?
You know, how do you do it? How do you go about that conversation? It's very tricky. This is very personal. It's very tricky for me. I don't know when I get to that time when I'll have to have a conversation. I don't know what I'll do.
Thank you so much, Serfin and the team. It's important to understand that we are in a real life. And when in a real life is, the good book says, train a child on the way that he should grow. And when they grow up, they will not depart from it. All right. Now, it's when your daughter or your son reach on a stage that they tell you that I'm sexually active, they could be in one way right, or they could be in one way I've actually gone off the tangent. And it's also not necessary that whatever you train your child to be, that's what they will be. Yeah. There's also always chances that some moral degradation and outside elements can actually come in. But it is important to also get to understand where and how did my son or my daughter reach this stage. Now, when you get to understand that, you need to accept the fact that they are actually in that. And when you accept, it will actually help you to adjust. Adjusting in an element that you got to adjust on the language that you speak, you got to adjust on the perception and you take them on, and how you look at them. When it is now necessary to engage in contraceptives, it means that the law of abstinence has been overridden. And of course, now that's the only solution that we have to be. Because the most important thing is the safety of your daughter or your son. You know, because if they just engage loosely, chances of contracting sicknesses, STI, STDs, are inevitable and unwanted pregnancy. And so it's important to discuss with them at that particular time. But of course, before we reach that, and that is my point, before we get to reach that.
That is where I wanted you to get. Like, how do you get to that point where now you allow your son or daughter that, okay, now that you're sexually active, actually, it's okay that you start using contraception? Before you get to that point, I don't think what steps do you do? What do you do as a parent?
That is not the main thing, because you discover that before you get into that, there are several other sessions that you have missed.
Tell me
I believe that the first session is to get to let your son or daughter get to identify who they are. Because you have a lot of young people who are actually getting into an age of being sexually active when they still don't get to understand who they are. They're still dealing with the battles in the mind. They have actually not got an identity of who they are and whose they are. And so that they don't have a moral guideline on how to behave into the system of what they ought to be. And I believe that as early as they are making a self-discovery, they need to discover who they are and how they can be able to morally stand right on what they ought to be and take care of them. Because this is what I always tell young people, that you like your sweets from the shop packed in a well, nice covering. What if someone chew your sweet and then tack it back on there? Will you like it?
No.
Then let us teach our children on how to package their sweet. Well, until the time that whoever takes on their sweet.
I like Colin's reaction. Steve Miheso, he's watching the show. Thank you so much for that, and really excited about the hashtag Ifikie Wazazi. Anasema, according to him, Isifikie Wazazi. I don't know, but thank you so much, Steve, for watching. He's newly married, and this conversation is for you and I and all of us and our young people, this generation. And Colin, let me ask you, at such a time when the young people are very excited about these issues and they want to try out and experiment a lot of things, and parents are here busy trying to give them the moral aspect of it and teaching them that you need to abstain, you need to wait for marriage. When your child is not, like what you're saying, there is that generational gap. What you're saying and what your child understands do not really go like on a straight line. What do you do as a parent to prevent your kid from shying away from coming back to you? Because the moment you stand your ground and say, this is what I want us to do in this house, then they coil and they will never come back to you with anything, and they will do everything in secret. And that is where most families are actually. This is happening, but the family is not aware. These figures are there, but the parents are still hiding their heads in the sand and believing that their sons and daughters are still holy and waiting. Because of the disconnect that we have created. How do you avoid that disconnect? If your child wants to be curious and excited, but then as a parent you have this moral aspect of the issues, how do you connect these two mindsets to work together?
I think as awkward as it's going to be, as uncomfortable as it's going to be, you have to have that conversation proactively.
Okay.
You have to have that conversation when they're in their, I don't know what age it's going to be. If it's 12 years old, if it's when they start going through puberty.
Okay.
They're going to start, I mean, obviously the hormones are raging. So you've got to start having that conversation, hopefully before. I mean, contraception is a prophylactic against pregnancy and STIs and HIV. So is a conversation.
Let me get something clear before you continue. You're saying that parents should not wait until something bad has happened for them to start having that conversation.
You can't take it back.
Do it before, like create time way before something bad has happened.
You have to have that open conversation and open relationship with your children, where, like you said, they're not hiding from you. I mean, they're gonna hide stuff from you. That's what teenagers. Hopefully it's teenagers. That's what teenagers do. But there's got to be a safe place. There's got to be an understanding and a relationship and mutual love and respect for each other. I mean, I think Fred said it right. When they're not going the right way, according to you, that's the issue that parents have.
From your lenses as a parent.
From my point of view, you're going the wrong way. From their point of view, it's okay.
They're in love.
Or I'm in love, or whatever it is. I mean, hey, we have strong feelings when we're young. I mean, we have strong feelings all the time. But I mean, look at Kenyan politics. We got strong feelings. But you got to have that conversation ahead of time, so that they understand what are the consequences. You know, if you've got if you're in a relationship and you're sexually active, do you know what your partner's status is? Do you know their HIV status? Do you know their STI status? Do they have herpes or gonorrhea or chlamydia or whatever it is? But worst of all, HIV. I mean, because you can't. That's a lifetime. You can't get rid of it. There's no cure.
True. But we can do something to manage the numbers and the figures. And by the way, as we are having this conversation, this is just from me. We're actually doing you a favor as a parent. This can be a very good opportunity to start that conversation if you've never started. Watching such a program, you can use this today, this morning, and your kids are maybe moving around, not kids wale wadogo kabisa, not the younger ones, the ones who can really understand this information. It can be a very good opportunity today after watching this program to sit down with your son or daughter, or even just your kids, and have this conversation. Right now, they're in holiday, they are at home, they are just spending time with you. This is a very good opportunity for you to start that conversation if you've never done it before, and you'll get to explore their minds, allow them to ask all the difficult questions they want to ask, allow them to be as curious as they want to be, and you will be able to create a very good friendship with them. Going forward, it will be easier, and it becomes easier as you go by. The more you talk to them, the more less awkward it becomes.
And you may not be able to answer every question
today, but with time.
But kids, I think they get a lot of because I said so. Unfortunately. You know,
nothing is explained.
You can quote the Bible if you want to, or if you need to. That's fine. That's what your beliefs are. That's what our beliefs are as a family. I mean, I grew up in a religious household as well. I didn't get married until I was 34 years old. I didn't wait until I was 34 years old to have sex. I made that decision when I was in my early 20s. You know, that was late amongst my peers.
Yeah, yeah.
But I made that decision myself.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, just learning on from parents, and I think it's up on task for parents to begin to exemplify what they want their kids to be, rather than say what they want their kids to be. You know,
do as I say,
in the city life today,
or right their wrongs
Yeah.
through their kids.
Yes.
That I made a mistake. I don't want you to make the same mistake, which is okay. But some parents want their kids to live a perfect life, contrary to what they did.
Very true.
Yeah,
No
but
such
go
thing
on,
as a
Fred.
perfect life.
Yeah, you know, there's a joke going on. And this father is saying to the son, you know, my days, I was number one in class. I was well behaved, and I was this, I was this. So the son asked him, so why are you not the president? You know, if all of those things you are.
If you
but
were
of course, you know,
perfect.
it's also good to be vulnerable onto where we have failed, but also stand up to what is right. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that if you messed up, then everyone around you got to mess up. And you know, I know that I'm talking to parents who are single parents. I'm talking to families that have actually gone on through all manner of things. But you know, there is chances to begin to behave. There's chance to begin to make things in order by the way you treat things, by the way you act on in a family. Because you know, character is more caught than learned. And when people get to catch up on the right character, they begin to adhere onto it, and they begin to practice it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you train your kid well, and they can make decisions that are informed, and they can decide to say no because they know why they are saying no, and it's genuine, it's from them, not inflicted on them by the parent, then that is something that will last them a lifetime.
Sure.
As opposed to making decisions based on fear. That I was told if I engage in sex, I'll get pregnant. That is what they've grown up to know, and they are afraid of pregnancy.
Yes.
The moment they will get exposed to information about how to prevent pregnancy, boom, then they will engage in sex, because this is something that they've been afraid all along, and then suddenly they find out that, okay, I can actually do this and I cannot get pregnant. Then that is a decision that they've not made based on being informed, but it's something that they've just lived out of ignorance until that time when somebody gave them the right information. So I would agree with the both of you to some extent. It's important that you, as a parent, you be the one to teach your kids about all these issues,
Agreed.
including the alternatives, so that when they're making a decision, they make an informed decision. Colin, there are people who are very uncomfortable with the ads that run on our screens about contraceptives.
Sure.
Especially during news time, and you see something, you know, there are people who are very uncomfortable with that, and they would advocate that this is something that should not be done. I don't know, from where you sit, what do you think? You work in that industry.
Hey.
I don't know if it, what's your opinion on that?
So I think being responsible for the organization that made the advertisement that might run during the evening news.
Yes.
When most Kenyans are watching and they're watching with their kids.
Yes.
And running, being the lead of an organization that we made condoms with very attractive packaging.
Yes.
The reality is that from our research and from years of research, it showed that people are embarrassed. There's a lot of stigma associated with using contraception, particularly for young people. That's why we decided to make a packaging that's very attractive. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too attractive to very young kids that like strawberry and chocolate and asking if they think they're sweets. But better that than better to tell your 4 or 5 year old that it's not for you than for a 15 or 16-year-old to engage in unprotected sex. And who knows?
But must they come during the primetime news, and must those adverts run at that time?
That's when the most people are watching.
Okay.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think, and I think it was late last year, or maybe it was even the year before, when the KFCB decided that condoms and alcohol were one and the same, which I think is absolutely crazy. Condoms are a public health product.
Okay.
We have a responsibility to help to try to inform people as best as possible. It's not a vice. This is a product that helps save people's lives.
Okay.
Not only are you talking about unintended pregnancies, unsafe abortions, and disease transmission. I mean, this is a public health. This is not a product that should be considered a vice. This is not a product that should attract VAT. We do everything we can to stop people from using condoms in Kenya for some reason, and it's crazy to me. I think it's absolutely crazy.
It's not doing us a favor as a country.
Absolutely not. We're still sitting somewhere in the high single digits in HIV prevalence, and it's growing.
And I'll share with you some interesting HIV statistics with young people in a bit. But Fred, the same question to you. What do you think about the adverts that run on our screens during prime time that are advertising contraceptives and all that?
And I know that people who are already looking at me and wondering what I'm going to say about
yes.
it.
Coming from a religious...
Being that I'm from a religious background.
Yes.
I don't want to comment whether it is right to do advertisements during watertight time or non-watertight time and mental classification. But what I want to clearly say is that Collins and the team are coming on board to sort out the crisis that you have allowed to come in our way. Why? Because you have actually not gotten to understand what is freedom. And freedom in its package is an element that needs to be understood in all contexts. In that choices have consequences, and the choices we make will actually be able to develop into the consequences that we receive. And so this one takes us back into how much do we have grip on what is our cultural standards and what is our religion or spiritual averence, that whatever comes either enlighten us and not affect us. Because it is like, you're already sick of malaria and you are fighting, you are complaining whether it's malaria queen or Panadol, which should cure the malaria. Yeah. But we do not ask ourselves, did you sleep in a protected net? Did you put the net in the first place? So, fighting condoms is like, exposing yourself to malaria and then, wondering which drug is going to, feel on. I believe, let us get back to the basic. Let us sleep in a net, and then we will escape on this thing. Let us expose our children into what is right. Let us be in the right places. Let us behave right. It does not matter if we are in our right conscience, whether the condoms are advertised on lunchtime or whether they are advertised on a dinner when you're on the dinner table. What we will do is that if it does not add up to us, we will switch back the channel. Or we will watch it and let it pass away. But the curiosity is because we are already stigmatized. We are already averred on into it. And so for the matter, it actually appeals onto us. Okay,
wow, all right. So we've come to the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for your time. And what I was saying very quickly, in case you've never had time to talk to your young people about these kind of issues, there is this thing that the research has shown that young people are actually most affected by the increasing rates of HIV and AIDS. Just 2016, the National AIDS Control Council has said that the young people between the ages of 15 to 24 contributed to 51% of new HIV infections. This is a figure that was higher than what was there in 2015. I wouldn't like to go into the numbers, but from what they're saying, 97 young people on average are infected daily.
It's pretty scary.
Like today, 97 young people are infected. So this is what they're giving us. So something that is really shocking, and it's about time that we stop making this a taboo topic, something that we do not want to talk about. Let's stop burying our heads in the sand. 30 seconds each for your final words, your parting shots. Colin, okay, Fred, I'll start with you.
All right.
30 seconds.
For me, this is my appeal to the society. The facts and the figures are out there, but there is something that we can be able to do. We need to get back to our right position. As a parent, parenting is not just giving birth to kids and letting them on to be adopted into the society and let the society teach them. But on the other hand, it is important to take charge of what God has given us. You know what? We'll be answerable to this at one other time. If you don't have the knowledge, borrow it. If you cannot be able to borrow it, get it. If you cannot be able to get it, search it. And you know what? At the end of it, you are responsible for the moral standard of your children, and you will be answerable for anything that actually goes wrong. Our children are very vulnerable. And for that particular matter, we need to treat them with care. Give them the right information at the right time, and all will go well.
All right. Thank you so much. Colin, your final remarks?
So I think for for those of you parents out there, this is going to be an awkward conversation, and that's the hard part of parenting. You've made a decision with your partner to have children. Hopefully you've made that conscious decision. But for those of you who feel uncomfortable with it, I'm sorry, but KISS condoms are going to be advertised as much as possible. Lydia contraceptives are going to be advertised as much as possible because people need to understand what their choices are for those that are making and be able to make an informed decision. So that's our job. That's our contribution to this society. I'm not, it's been proven over and over again that comprehensive sexuality education does not increase the onset of sexual debut or risky behavior. It reduces teenage pregnancies. It reduces HIV transmission. It reduces STI transmission. Having the conversation ahead of time is what's powerful. Knowledge is power.
Okay.
Whether it's awkward or not, I'm sorry, but that's our job as parents.
Yeah.
And let us not fight contraceptive.
Yeah, let us not fight.
I think
They're
it's the
there because of
craziest
what
thing.
we failed
Yes,
to do as a
yes.
society, because
Very true.
we've allowed that to happen. Our young people are engaging in sex, and if they do not engage in safe sex, then we'll have the numbers of HIV, STIs, teenage pregnancies shoot up, and deaths even shoot up even more. So this is actually a consequence of where society has come from. So what we need to do is go back to the basics, go back to the drawing line and find out, where did the rain start beating us? If you do not want this to happen, what should we do to stop it from happening? So that is where the solution lies. That is our homework beginning now. Instead of pointing fingers and complaining and looking at these pictures of #Tufikie Wazazi and blaming the kids and society and everything, go back to the basics and do your homework as an adult, as a parent. My name is Serfin Achieng. Thank you so much for watching the show this morning. It's been great. It's been lovely. I'm sure you've learned a lot. And I believe we've given you that opportunity to start that very hard conversation and make it easier for your kids going forward. And we'll see you tomorrow bright and early for another edition of Good Morning Kenya. Keep watching KBC Channel 1. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us.
The day will be morally right. You will turn back and be a